Yep, I'm thinking the same thing as you. Definitely CGI. But I still kinda like it. It's original. Hello, and welcome to Strange Times number 29. First video of 2021. Alright. And I was just having a look on the calendar, and in Australia we put the days first instead of the month. And so the numbers read off 12121. And also, all morning, I've been seeing quadruple fours. Like 4 fours. I'm not really into numerology or anything like that, but I don't know, I guess the human mind kind of likes to pick out patterns. Anyway, enough. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, I hope everyone had a good Christmas, and, welcome to the new year. Hope you had a good New Year's party. I know I didn't. I'm getting too old. I haven't stayed up for New Year's, till midnight. I don't even care to count how many years. I always found it kind of boring. When I'd go into the city, it was just too crowded. You couldn't get to the bar. You couldn't bring your own booze in because there's cops patrolling everywhere. It was too much of a mess. Not worth it. And now I've just got the excuse of I'm too old. But I'm not too old to make videos about ghosts and demons and aliens and dwarves. Dwarves? Yowies as well. Big feet. So let's get into it. Mystery footprints. Alicia Smith from Grimsby, England, was left scratching her head when she found her car covered in footprints. The phenomenon was first discovered at around 10:30 a.m. on December 31st, after a period of particularly cold weather had left her car coated in a thin layer of ice. The vaguely human-like prints, which went from the front of the car all the way up the windscreen and across the roof, were not only strangely shaped, but also seemed to have only 4 toes. Quote, "We'd never seen anything like this before. It was very odd," she said. "They're a strange shape and only have 4 toes, and don't quite look human. I'm not sure if it was a child, and why would someone be barefoot in this weather? The car was parked outside our house all night, so whatever did it must have been just outside. We didn't hear or see anything." Very reminiscent of Spring-Heeled Jack, don't you think? But as usual, there's not a lot of information available. So my first question is there any other prints on the ground? Is there prints leading up to the car, and where did the prints go afterwards, after it jumped off the car? And I noticed on the top there's like a double left print, so where he walks up the windscreen, he must have hopped on his left foot to land on top of the roof, and that seems strange, and I think there'd be more evidence of scuffing in the ice if he had to jump with one foot onto the roof, because it's going to be very slippery. And that's my initial impressions there, the expert that I am. Feel free to add yours. And next we've got the Bukit Timah Monkey Man. This photograph was captured by the Singaporean paranormal research group known as the Night Raiders. And this is just a quick description of the Bukit Timah Monkey Man from Wikipedia. Commonly abbreviated as BTM or BTMM, it's a creature said to inhabit Singapore, chiefly in the forested Bukit Timah region. The creature is often cited as a forest-dwelling hominid or primate. Others believe it is an evil spiritual form, and some say it is immortal. However, its exact identity remains unknown, and its existence is disputed. Documentation of the BTM is sparse and scattered. The creature is largely considered a product of local folklore. Close quote. There were several sighting reports of BTMs during 2007 and 2008, and last year, Yat Manovaga from the TKCK research group spotted a BTM at Drongo Trail. This year, one of our equipment specialists, Alfie, followed this particular group, the TKCK group, for a mission, and also to test his paranormal equipment in this particular jungle. During that night, they witnessed a BTM, and our specialist managed to capture it within a split second. He said the BTM was really huge. So what do you guys reckon of that picture? Like, I don't want to cast dispersions on a man that I've never met, so without knowing his character, just looking at the picture itself, it looks photoshopped. But you never know, like, who can say what the paranormal is going to look like on camera? I found this next one pretty interesting. Arial anomaly near Stonehenge. So you can see the photo here. It's not very impressive, is it? But just stick around for another minute and a bit. No, it'll be less than a minute. Let me see. It depends on how long this part goes for. But I'll play the video at the end, and it's actually pretty impressive. Well, I reckon it's impressive anyway. You'll probably yawn. But, I'm easily impressed. I was impressed by that CGI at the start, so, that's the sort of guy you're listening to. The unidentified object, filmed near the Wiltshire monument, Stonehenge, resembled a bright, flat disc and was captured on camera by Tash Minto and her partner Tony Waterhouse, who had been driving along the A303 near Mere on October 31st. Wasn't the other one on October 31st too? No, it's December 31st. Okay. October 31st, that's Halloween. Oh my god. Quote, on the way back from Devon yesterday, we noticed a huge bright light in the sky on the left side of the A303 road. It was orange and had a very strong artificial light. My partner said that there may have been more lights, but I could have sworn it was just a solid body. We thought of drones or reflectors, but what we were seeing by no means matched their size. The light was constant. It was under the clouds and it was motionless. It rotated for about 3 minutes and then it disappeared. And here's the video.
At about 5 o'clock on Halloween 2020. Now, I thought it looks like, from a naked eye, lots of little dots, little lights, whereas my girlfriend thought it was just one solid beam. And as you can see, it's just hovering there in the sky. And then sort of we got this footage, but then very quickly it just disappeared. If anyone's got any explanation as to what it is, because as far as I'm concerned, it's a UFO. So we got some more footage. Again, we sort of zoomed in. It's quite grainy, but you can clearly see there's just some lights, or light, floating in the air. And it was in a single place the whole time. It didn't move. It didn't fly around. It just hovered there, or flicker or anything. Just very strange. If anyone's got an explanation what it could be, I'd love to know. As far as I'm concerned, little green men came. Be fucking drones.
Something to do with Halloween?
That's what I'm thinking. Could be drones.
It looks like words.
Okay, alrighty. Let's finish up with a couple of... When I say a couple, I've got 5 for you. 5 extremely scary ghost stories. I've called this one Spirits Through the Portal. I called it that because all of these stories are about hauntings that occurred after using the Ouija board. Okay, let's get into it. Story 1. Okay, I'll just preface this story with this information. This is a story submitted by a woman called Angela Jackson. And here we go, this is her story. My heart thudded with excitement as we all placed our index fingers lightly on the bottom of an upturned whiskey glass they'd placed on the table. It began to pull in every direction. Who is it you want to speak to? Robert, my neighbour, asked. The glass started moving towards the letters, spelling out A-N-G-E-L-A. Angela. The spirit wanted to speak to me, but then it spelled out, die bitch. That's not funny, I said. Then Robert said, Angela, we didn't do anything, as he snatched his finger back from the glass. And then we all shrieked as the living room door slammed shut on its own. With my voice quivering, I asked, Who are you? And with my finger alone on the glass, it moved again, faster this time. I was murdered, it scrawled, just like you're going to be. I asked again, who are you? And the glass quickly spelt out, Satan, which spells Satan. I then screamed at the board. I'm not scared. I'm not going to scream, all right? She screamed, though. If you can imagine a screaming woman, she goes, I'm not scared. To hell with you, demon. And with that, the tumbler flew off the table and smashed into the wall. Leaping up, my neighbour slammed on the lights and blew out the candles. We should never do this again, he said. But they weren't the ones who had been told they were going to be murdered. I needed to know more. So I went about trying to re-establish a connection with this spirit, using the board regularly for several months without success. And then the nightmares started. I kept seeing a menacing man in my dreams, holding a hammer. It felt like a threat, or a prediction. Then one evening, as I was leaving to go out, I locked the front door of my flat, then started walking down the concrete steps in the stairwell. From behind me, I heard a voice. Die, bitch, it growled. I froze and was shaking with fear. I turned to see a man in a white t-shirt emerge from the shadows holding a claw hammer. I screamed as he brought the weapon down on my head with a sickening thud. He hit me again, and warm blood began to trickle down my face. I couldn't see where my attacker was. I just wanted to get away. Drenched in blood, I made it to the front door and then collapsed. Waking in hospital, I felt confused and groggy. You were attacked, the doctor explained. You've suffered a fractured skull. I now live in fear that whoever it was will return to finish the job, just as the spirit had warned through the Ouija board. Story 2. I was about 12 or 13, spending the night at a friend's house, goofing around with the Ouija board, with him and his sister, and we were getting all sorts of gibberish, plus a few readable words as well, spelled out. We were just kind of scaring ourselves for fun and not taking it very seriously, when we got the message, I can see you through the window, and then, I can see you through his eyes. There was just a small window in the basement room where we were, and just the backyard and woods past the driveway visible through that window. We asked it more questions, and it said, I'm under the car. So somehow, we got up the nerve to go out with a flashlight and peer under the car. Fuck that. There's no way I would do that. And underneath, we saw a huge, stray black cat, which was hissing. We ran inside freaking out, and at that exact moment, the power failed, and all the lights in the house went out. We just about actually shit ourselves. A few minutes later, the power came back on, and we stayed up until dawn, too afraid to sleep. We never played with the board again. That story's actually all over the internet. You've probably heard it before. And you've got to admit, it would be pretty scary. It actually reminds me of one of the first videos I did, which I called, let me use my outstanding mental capacity for memory. What's it called? I'm going to have to look it up. It's called A Ghost Communicates Through the Computer. But yeah, in that computer story where the ghost communicates through the computer, it's actually a really cool story. You should check it out. I remember it's the last story on that video. So if you want to skip the other shorter stories, which I would recommend, go to that last story. It's really cool. I'll leave a link. And so we move on to the next story, titled Story 3. When he was 15, Joe, from Perth in Western Australia, decided to try a seance with his friend using a Ouija board. Joe was skeptical of the whole experience and believed his friend was pushing the glass around the board. However, in the days following, Joe began to regularly wake in fear, drenched in a cold sweat, at exactly 3:15 every morning. He felt he was being watched from the shadows. In the daylight, he was surprised to find the glass from the seance sitting on his desk in his bedroom. Puzzled and a little fearful as to how it got there, he disposed of it. Quote, I was certain that the glass was the reason for my sleepless nights. I once again disposed of the glass. However, I kept experiencing the same feelings. And once again, upon inspection, I came across the same glass that I had already thrown out into the garbage twice. This time I was determined to get rid of it, so I took it outside and smashed it on the ground. However, I continued waking at 3:15 a.m. to the minute every night without fail, and I started seeing strange dark shadows. The shadows started as perfect black balls, which would circle my room, then seem to disappear through my window. I put this down to paranoia and a lack of sleep at first, and simply tried to ignore it and then just go back to sleep. Other people in the house started to notice the shadows too, however, and not just at night. They would be seen during the normal waking hours as well. Gradually, the shadows seemed to get bigger, but I continued to ignore them until one night. The family dog woke me at 3:15 a.m. He was sitting next to my bed, and he was making a crying sound. I figured the dog needed to go out, so I got up and let him outside. The bathroom light was on, letting light flood the hallway as I walked back into my room, and that's when the dog started growling. I moved closer to the bathroom door so the dog could see it was me. I was worried he was growling at my shadow. I called him to me as he continued to growl and said, "Hey, it's only me, come here. What's the matter?" The dog walked slowly towards me, still growling, and sat next to my leg, still growling at something behind me. In a flash, my thoughts raced to, "Oh my God, there's someone in the house." I turned around and started running down the hallway. What I saw was something that has never left my mind. I saw what seemed like a huge bird. It had huge outstretched wings and would have touched the roof and almost the floor. Its body ended where the wings did, like a bat, and seemed not to touch the ground. As it followed me down the hallway, the wings stayed outstretched and seemed to glide as it moved. I did notice a small head in between the wings, but no features that I recall, and the head seemed hooded rather than round, and connected to the body without a neck. The creature seemed more shadow-like than flesh. I remember mostly the wings and the enormity of them as they towered over me, and how it moved, gliding as it followed me, until it slipped into another room. Mothman, anyone? That's what I'm thinking. Except there was no glowing red eyes. And us paranormal experts, all of us here, we know that Mothman has glowing red eyes. Maybe he had them shut. He was squinting. Anyway, I'm talking a load of crap today. I apologize for that, sort of. Okay, let's keep the momentum moving. We got story 4. Mum asked if there was anyone there that wanted to speak to us. I was giggling. She asked again, and the planchette moved to yes. I accused Mum of moving it, and she swore that she did not. Mum then asked, "Who are you?" and the planchette spelled Jackson. We did not know anyone by the name of Jackson, first or last name. Mum then asked, "Are you a good spirit?" The planchette moved to yes, and then to no. Mum asked, "How did you die?" The planchette did not move from the middle of the board. I was starting to get scared at this point, so Mum said, "Since you are not going to tell us, we are going to say goodbye now." The planchette slid to no. Mum said, "We have to go." The planchette went to goodbye. I hope you guys followed that because I am struggling. Let's continue. We took our fingers off the planchette and left it sitting in the middle of the board when it suddenly flew off the board, and the round plastic piece where the middle pointer is cracked. Mum put it all back into the box and put it up in my closet. Nice of Mum to put the haunted Ouija board in the daughter's room. Good on you, Mum. My mum smoked cigarettes, and that night her cigarettes smelled like sulphur. She said they tasted like sulfur too. My dad could not smell it or taste it, but I could smell the sulfur, strong. 3 nights later, the growling started. It was in the corner of my room. I went and got my mum, and the growling did not stop. Dad was home and told Mum to get the flashlight and go outside to have a look. Where we lived, the floor was close to the ground, and my room was at the end of the house. While the growling was still happening, Dad came back in and said that there was nothing under there. My mum proceeded to yell at it and tell it to stop, but it just got louder and started to sound more like a guttural growl, like it was going to come through the floor after my mum, and then it just stopped. The next morning, my mum felt sick. We took her temperature and it was 102 degrees. Dad took her to the hospital and they admitted her. She was diagnosed as having an infection clear through her whole body. She was there for a week. The doctor told my dad that if he had waited 1 more day to bring her in, it could have killed her. We never heard the growling again. Do you know, I just noticed another crappy, pointless little synchronicity. The first story was by a person called Angela Jackson, and in that story, the Ouija board spelled out Angela, and then in this story, the Ouija board spells out Jackson. Story number 5. In high school, a couple of friends, my friend's mum and myself, were talking about a local building being haunted. The building was home to a local business that sold dirt, bark, and other landscaping materials. It was rumoured to be the location of a murder several years earlier. The mum worked there, so we decided to break out the board and give it a shot. I had never used one before, so I was skeptical from the jump. The place is essentially a large warehouse with tall metal racks. Think Costco or Home Depot. And these racks were stacked with bags of dirt and manure and bark and other things like large ceramic flower pots. The Ouija board was a glow-in-the-dark one, so we kept all the lights off. Once we got going, it started moving around, and I was freaking out already. We asked if something was there, and for it to let us know, and there was a loud bang that seemed to come from the rafters on the other side of the warehouse. Every question that followed was met with a similar bang from various locations within the warehouse. Sometimes it was close and sometimes it was far. The last question asked was if it meant us harm, and the thingy, already on the no answer, did not move. The question was repeated and immediately followed by the closest and the loudest noise yet. It seemed to be right on top of us, so we decided to get out of there quick. As we were rushing out, we flipped on our flashlights and saw 1 or 2 of the large pots fall from the racks and heard what we would later find to be a 40-pound bag of bark dropping to the ground. There was also a slow, low, grinding noise that when my friends returned the next day turned out to be a sledgehammer that had been dragged through the dirt-covered cement floor. It was standing straight up in the air with the drag marks, but no footprints. And that's that. That would freak me out, you got to admit. Imagine that, knowing that there was some ghost dragging a sledgehammer towards you in the pitch black. No thanks. And that's pretty much all I've got for you, but I just wanted to mention this. Can you guys remember I showed a potential EVP that turned up on one of my recordings? Well, I came across this video of a psychic who is doing a reading for this person, and the reading's being recorded. And towards the end of the recording, there's the clearest EVP that I've ever heard. And I'd love if you guys had a listen and told me what you think. I don't want to play it on here because I don't want to steal her views. So I'll send you to her website, to that video, and have a look at it. And towards the end, there's a person that says, actually, I can't remember what he says. He says something like, yo, dude, or so, I can't remember. I should have watched it before I actually mentioned this, but go check it out and tell me what you think, if you don't mind. All right. See you guys next time.